my name is Jessica Tomasino, and I'm the Early Childhood Special Education Specialist for the Indiana Department of Education in the Office of Special Education. Today I have with me Michael Compowers, Center Director, and Sally Reed Crawford, Research Associate from the Indiana Institute on Disability and Community's Early Childhood Center out of IU Bloomington.
Thanks so much for having us, Jessica. We have some tools and events that we've been working on, and we'd like to share those.
Fantastic. Sally, how about we start with the directory? You've been working very hard on an amazing tool for our Indiana preschools. Would you like to tell us about that?
Sure, I'm happy to share. As you remember, last March, early March, you invited us to put together a directory of Indiana corporations who were either at average or high percentages of inclusion and impact, to also include the evidence-based practices they were implementing, and of course their staff contact information. Because what we want out of this directory is for school districts or corporations to use it as a networking piece. It'll be online, and we hope that it is completed and ready by mid-September.
I'm so excited to see the final product. Could you tell us a little bit more about how you gathered that information?
Sure. We started by looking at and putting together evidence-based practices based on the three features of inclusion, which are accessibility, participation or engagement, and administrative supports. And from that, we created interviews to pose to the corporations to gather that information.
And as an administrator or educator using this tool, what would I expect to find browsing the tool online?
Well, for instance, the evidence-based practices for accessibility, let's say, we put in items that really looked at how corporations were implementing universal design for learning, assistive technology, and adaptations. For the participation and engagement, we wanted to really look at how are they intentionally using instructional practices of embedded teaching, scaffolding, and tiered instructional supports. And then a very important one is administrative supports. So those items will be reflected in whatever corporations are doing to have systems of ongoing professional development, what are their models of collaboration, and their family-staff partnership efforts.
Okay, thank you. And then lastly, could you tell me a little bit more about the data that was collected, the districts that were used in the inclusion directory, maybe along the lines of whether they're rural, suburban, urban districts?
Sure. We had 27 corporations that we invited to participate, and 21 agreed to be included. So of those 21, there were 5 rural counties, 9 in suburban counties, and 7 in urban counties. So the rural corporations were predominantly located in the southwest or south counties, and 1 corporation in the eastern part of Indiana. Suburban counties seem to, have a range where 2 corporations were in central, south, southwest, and north, and then 1 corporation in the northeast part of Indiana. And the urban mix was another range, 3 in the north, 2 in central, and 1 in each of northeast and southeast. So it was a really pretty good demographic sample of Indiana and the school corporations and what they're doing with young children in inclusive settings. So each of the participating corporations, they contributed an administrator and a classroom practitioner for interviews. And so right now, we've had 38 interviews completed, and we are busy collating the information. We also have added some observation of classrooms last spring, and we're going to add some more this fall.
Awesome, thank you. All right, next I'd like to talk a little bit more about the Department of Education and ECC collaboration efforts. So, Michael, could you speak a little bit more about that? I know we have a webinar coming up in September that they'll be able to find information on Moodle. And then we'll also all be presenting together at the Early Childhood Administrators Conference coming up. But what are some other things that we've been working on that everyone can expect to come?
Right. We've had a nice, close working relationship I think some of the things that we're going to work on is springing from what Sally was sharing from the directory. We're looking at taking from the practices that she mentioned, the evidence-based practices around membership and accessibility and instructional supports. We're looking at working with you to develop short shares, possibly up to 4 short shares that would focus on those themes or threads that Sally shared earlier around membership and what are the strategies and practices we've observed in our Indiana school corporations that foster children's membership and engagement and participation. Looking at the instructional practices, we know that a concern among districts is how can we ensure that children's individual learning needs are met? So what are the instructional practices? It is around creating universally designed early education classrooms. So how does accessibility work, and how can we provide a role for our early childhood special education teachers? So we hope to release up to 4 short shares over the course of the year that highlight what we've learned from our Indiana schools. Another thing that we've been working with you on is the LRE guidance tool. As we started to look at the data and identifying districts that are doing high amounts of inclusive services, we saw some inconsistencies, and we recognized that the coding scheme that we use, thanks to the federal government, can be a little confusing. So we've been working with you on developing and getting ready to release that LRE guidance tool that will provide better guidance and direction to school districts as they code children's placement and receipt of services. And then finally, as you mentioned, we're going to be working together and presenting. So we'll be there at the Early Childhood Special Education Administrators Conference next month in September. We hope to be part of the program at iCase. And then in November and December, we're looking forward to participating in the regional roundtables. And that'll provide an opportunity to share information about the directory, the LRE guidance tool, and the short shares.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Michael. I really appreciate you sharing that information with everyone. And thank you both so much for being here and sharing all of the great work that you're working on and that we're collaborating on together. And we appreciate you tuning in with us today, and we hope that you were able to gain a few takeaways. As always, please reach out if you have any questions. We're always happy to assist you in any way that we are able.